welcome to episode 3 of the Association Marketing Show. Today we are joined by Sheila Johnston, Senior Vice President of Business Operations at the California Pharmacists Association. Sheila, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Abe. I'm excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to it. So really quickly, just to kind of set context for everybody, can you tell us a little bit about your background, maybe how you made it into the world of associations, our funny, unique, awesome little world, and then what your role is today?
Absolutely. So I think this should make my husband really happy, but I'm one of those people that are very stubborn, and admitting that is is a win for him. However, I knew from a really young age that I wanted to study political science and be involved in government to some degree. My grandparents in India were freedom fighters, and so I was always inspired by their uncanny ability to just set out and do what they knew was right. So I studied political science in college and went into public administration for graduate school, knowing that I wanted to really make the world better in some way. So I'm getting to your answer. However,
Yeah.
I found myself working in the state legislature, in the California state legislature, in the assembly, the Senate. I even worked in Washington, D.C. and Congress for a little while, but found myself just needing to understand more about the political process. And through my adventures in my career, I learned about the budget process. I became a lobbyist. I then found the association world through my lobbying background. Um, but while I was lobbying, what I found most interesting to me was just how much I was drawn to those interpersonal relationships in the association that I represented. I wanted to learn what our members did. I wanted to help them succeed in their everyday life and who they represented. At the time, my first association job was actually representing healthcare districts, which I know you have in Florida as well. But think about the directors of a hospital board making decisions as for how care is provided in communities throughout California. So I found this really interesting knack for customer relations, for member services. And although the legislature is so important, what was important to me was knowing that I was assisting and educating and making services more applicable, not just the Sacramento view, but really how do you intertwine government into your everyday. So that turned into a 7-year career in association management, and now adding another 2 years at the California Pharmacists Association. I've been able to really exemplify my love for member relations, for marketing, for everything in between, but with a foundation of government relations at the very bottom of everything I do. I know some people really like just the lobbying, that's all they want to do.
Yeah.
But for me, association management encompasses really representation, 360-degree representation of the members you represent.
Totally. What does your association do? What is kind of its main focus areas, main member services and benefits, and all that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Abai. So the California Pharmacists Association really is unique in that it's been around for 150 years. Now, to even fathom that associations could exist, so long ago, is so encouraging and inspiring to me because not much has changed. 150 years ago, pharmacists believed and had the vision to form together to really exemplify what they needed to expand their profession. So at the California Pharmacists Association, our founding members decided that pharmacy is going in so many different ways. There's so many different practice settings. So they formed the California Pharmacists Association. So we represent all different pharmacy types, not just those that work in hospitals or in a community pharmacy, which is probably the most common way that you would interact with a pharmacist. We represent pharmacists that work in industry, which means like working for a biotech firm, or even in academia. We We provide advocacy services to all pharmacy practice settings, education, and a variety of member benefits that could be health insurance, liability coverage. By forming together as one profession, one voice, we really exemplify the manner in which pharmacists can practice their everyday profession. So the California Pharmacists Association has 13 staff members, and that's varied throughout the years. Right now we're at 13. We represent 10% of the pharmacists that practice within California, and that's a number that we're constantly trying to grow. But in any given year, there could be challenges to our success, and I know other associations have had similar challenges in recruiting or maintaining a membership, but we'll get to that in a second, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As far as the way my departments are set up, in July of this year, I was promoted to the Senior Vice President of Business Operations. And in that promotion, I absorbed the finance department, and then I had my existing departments of communications and membership. And for finance, I just do the day-to-day operations. We do have an external CFO that does the big picture budgeting, but for the day-to-day operations, that's under my purview. But for this conversation, the communications team, I've been so lucky to have a unified team that brings so many diverse viewpoints to expanding our brand awareness and pushing the association forward. So even though we only have a staff of 13, you'd really think that we have 20 on our communications team.
Right. So how is that communications sub-department or the communications team set up? What are the roles within that?
Absolutely. So we have Daryl Visitation, who's our Director of Digital Marketing and Analytics, which is a field that I really want to focus in on with you if possible.
Yeah.
Then we have 2 communications specialists, a 1 and a 2. And I've been so lucky again with my team because all 3 of my team members have graphic design capabilities. They have copywriting capabilities. So we're really the trifecta of effectiveness here at CPHA in terms of communication.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, talk about the most important asset for any marketing leader. It's the marketing team for sure. I mean, having the right tech, having the right approach and strategy, all of that is of course necessary, but the team is what makes it all happen, you know? A lot of times what we hear is that the marketing team is actually distributed across multiple other departments. So there might be a communications specialist on the events team, and then another one maybe on the membership team or on the education team. And so, you know, I think for a lot of associations, that is not necessarily a strategic decision. It's just kind of how things have happened. Oh, we need somebody to handle all of our communications and promotions for our events. Let's bring them onto the events team. And then we have that same thing on the education side, for example, and then let's bring in someone there. And so, you know, this happens kind of organically on its own in some cases. But what you came into, as far as I understand, was a situation something like that, and then did the internal change management to bring the teams together. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit, why you decided to do that, how you manage that process internally, and you know what the effects of that have been since you've made that shift.
Absolutely. So I got a little bit of clarity during my interview process when I was first brought on. The CEO at the time wanted to know how I project manage communication alerts and updates and social media. So that gave me a clue that there was a lot of disorganization in terms of not having a marketing strategy put in place. So those feelings were actually validated during my first month on the job here at CPHA, when my team told me they were completely being cut out of other departments' initiatives, especially as it related to conference promotion, which was the big thing at the time.
Yeah.
So they had asked me to really unify departments in terms of marketing and really utilize the skill set that we had internally to enhance the unified vision of the California Pharmacists Association. So one of my team members actually came up with this great idea, and it sounds so bureaucratic and office space-like, but we created the Communications Action Request Form. It's called a CAR form.
I love that.
And it's branded beautifully, actually.
That makes all the
But
difference.
no, always.
Okay, so wait, it's the communication actions request form.
Yep,
Okay,
the
got it.
communication act request form.
Okay.
So what was happening was that the communications team was asked to put out a social post, design a graphic, send out an alert, but there was no context behind it. And as you know, as CMO of Feathr, marketing needs direction, they need research, they need the context behind what we're trying to market.
Yeah.
That is what influences graphics, it influences copy, it actually enables excitement in terms of marketing your brand for an association. So the CAR form, really simple. We made it a PDF, but we asked for background information. We asked for a desired review date, a publication date, and what is the audience, right? Because we need to understand when we're creating a vision for a department or for an event, really what the main purpose is.
Yeah.
What is the end result? Is it engagement, awareness, registration? So by asking for that little bit of input from our teammates in other departments, it actually enabled a couple of things. It enabled a positive workflow where we could schedule alerts. We use MailChimp here.
Okay.
We had previously used Constant Contact, but what I noticed when I came in, we were sending maybe 5 emails on a good day. And that was really hurting our unsubscribe rate. So
Wow.
we needed to organize what we were sending, how often we were sending,
Yeah.
and what we were asking for.
Exactly.
So thankfully, the CAR form really helped make our communications strategy a lot more efficient and change the mindset of the other departments in terms of how valuable these idiosyncrasies of marketing really are relevant to the success of the organization.
You talked about the pacing of the emails changing, but I'm also curious about some other tips that you would give association marketers around email marketing. I mean, everybody's using email, of course. You know, the death of email has been predicted, a dozen times in the last decade, and it doesn't seem to be happening. And I don't foresee email going away really at any point. Other channels may become more prominent, but I think email is a core part of the mix for digital marketing, indefinitely at this point. That being said, you can do email 101, which is kind of send an email to the whole list anytime you have anything to send them or anything to say, right? And that can end up with a lot of problems in terms of unsubscribes or just overwhelm, right, from a communication standpoint for your audience from you. And then there's all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is maybe like, fully automated behavior-based emails when people are doing things on your site or interacting with other emails, then you auto-send them follow-up emails, blah, 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 blah. And I don't necessarily think that should be the North Star for every organization, is to go to some kind of fully automated, behavior-based drip email campaign kind of process. That being said, I think that the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle, where it's not just a new email for everything to the whole list and hope that as many people open and click as possible. And it's also not just like this, kind of fantasy land of everything being automated or data-based or something like that. So I'm curious where you kind of fall in on that, and what improvements you've made to your email marketing approach and strategy, and what recommendations you'd make to association marketers who are, of course, relying on email that could help them improve the performance of that channel.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And for me, I'd like to go through that answer from the top to the bottom of an email. Where I always start with email marketing is the subject line. That drives the content for everything. And I put myself in the shoes of a member or a potential member that might be opening up the email that CPHA sends.
Mm-hmm.
So I drive a really trendy, click-worthy, fun subject line as often as possible. I want to hook our members I want them to feel like this email is personalized just for you, and you need to open it because what's inside is even better. So a good example is one that I thought of last week was in advance of our launch of our flagship event, Western Pharmacy Exchange. Subject line was "Dear Pharmacy, Love Palm Springs." That's something that they don't normally see, right?
That's great.
It's personal, it's fun, and it relates to the energy and the vibe that we're trying to market for our flagship conference next year. But then even when you move into the email itself, are there graphics that match what you are pitching in your subject line? And not to mention, the copy that you add to your email needs to be succinct enough to where they want to click on the learn more, register, renew, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I design copy in those emails that provide just a little bit of context, but a lot of teasing, plus a really pretty graphic picture, news alert, whatever it might be, because like any normal individual in the United States or in the world, who wants to read a boring email? I definitely, I get enough of those every single day. So how can I make CPHA's email special? We are consciously choosing to take 2 minutes out of your day. So how can I make this the best 2 minutes of your hour or of your half hour, whatever you have, right?
Right.
And then the other element that we always incorporate is some standing graphics. So even though there's one graphic that might change every day, a really good example is for conference marketing material. We keep standing graphics as for what the experience will be like. Will there be exhibit booths? Will there be networking? Because you have to what we try to understand is that every time someone clicks on an email, their eye or their analysis of our email will go to a different part of the email. We can't assume that it will be digested every single time. And we do also take it a step further. That graphic that ties to our subject line and the email that changes, just the copy content that changes, we actually use that graphic in social media. So everything is tied together. It's a theme for the week. And that way there's more correlation between the end user and CPHA. We're not putting out different messages throughout the day or throughout the week. It's all tied together and methodically thought out.
Gotcha. But I'm curious just about like your overall marketing setup and your kind of channel mix. And maybe we can talk about that for a sec.
Absolutely. I will say that CPHA's marketing success has really been tied to our digital analytics game. We are so fortunate to have someone on the communications team that sees the value in going after digital ad placements, not just with Feathr, which has been a huge success for CPHA, but also by incorporating Google Ad Grants. He had the vision to apply for a Google Ad Grant. So essentially, anytime pharmacist or keywords relating to pharmacy in California are Googled, it will bring up CPHA as a search result. So for the last 2 years, that's actually helped our impression count overall. We're on track to meet over 2 million impressions in the last quarter of the year total for 2020. And that's something that we didn't even think of reaching 5 years ago. I mean, he was thinking about your impression game, right?
Yeah.
We definitely have a 360-degree approach to marketing because it's just not efficient to use traditional lines anymore of marketing. You can't really make membership calls every single day of the week. I'm sure you're just as busy, or everyone's just as busy. Being on the phone is not the most efficient use of your time. So how can you utilize the tools that you have on the internet to expand your brand awareness?
Yeah. So email, Google Ads, programmatic kind of display retargeting. Those seem to be some of the big three. Any other ones that are kind of key components of your channel mix?
Yeah, so in our analytic analysis, I know that was a little wordy, but we analyze our analytics on a quarterly basis.
Gotcha.
we've determined that what social media channel actually pushes success.
Mm,
So for us, Facebook is the way our members communicate. We have the most engagement on Facebook. That's
mm,
where we really take the most time to educate our members about events or news or anything in between. LinkedIn is great for us as well, especially as we market educational events and the speakers that are coming into our conferences. But we've been able to determine through analytics where we can make the asks of our members and recruit and retain members as well.
mm.
So on a quarterly basis, we analyze where our impressions have risen the most, where
Yeah.
they've decreased, and then we make conscious decisions as a communications team to focus in and correlate our success to what is in the pipeline for the association.
Gotcha. So Facebook seems like the big one on the social side.
Facebook is the big one.
Okay. Are you doing anything on paid on Facebook or LinkedIn, or it's all organic?
So we actually use our Feathr retargeting campaigns on Facebook
Gotcha.
as
Okay.
well. I would say the ad game and the impression game has really elevated the potential partners that we've been able to bring in to CPHA. We have a robust corporate sponsorship program.
Yeah.
At, the pandemic, which I'm sure you're going to talk about in a second,
Yeah.
but it's so important for any marketing team to be able to pivot. The status quo should never exist. When you fall flat, you stop marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I've driven into the team here at CPHA, as well as needed or as warranted with my colleagues in other departments, really thinking about not being in the weeds, but how it looks to an outsider. And it might be a good thing that I'm not a pharmacist, because if I was, I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have the ability to implement the how is this going to look to an outsider approach.
Yeah, that objectivity is. I'm kind of curious what's changed from a marketing and a comms standpoint in these last 6-7 months.
Right. I would say that we really haven't done anything different in terms of our marketing, general marketing for association objectives. But where we have excelled this year has been finding the right virtual event platform for CPHA. Our members are very tied to tradition and very tied to the experience they had at an event last year or 5 years prior.
Mm.
So it was a fun challenge for the comms team and I to replicate an in-person experience, but virtually, and mitigate the Zoom, I guess, ease of Zoom that many had experienced really quickly once the pandemic hit, rather.
Yeah.
So that was a fun challenge, because when we were vetting virtual event platforms, the things that came into our mind was, one, how are we going to brand this? So it's not a boring black screen or red screen or whatever screen you have.
Right.
And then how are our members going to feel about it, which is probably where we've been able to have some success, being in charge of membership and communications. I have a really good feeling for what our members will like and what challenges may come.
Right.
So once the pandemic hit, we already knew our calendar for the year of what events may or may not come up or may not happen. So we quickly switched to finding a virtual event platform. I would say that was probably the biggest pivot for us, as well as the biggest challenge for us this year in terms of marketing. I can say that as a very visual team here at CPHA, when we were interviewing some potential vendors for that virtual platform, the first look of what an attendee would get needed to be wow. It needed to be not trying too hard either. It just needed to feel easy and fun and accessible. Not to mention there needed to be a pretty affordable price tag associated with it. So we actually found a virtual event platform that captured our ability to have a lot of creative leeway in designing the experience. And that came from branding the reception page. Once you clicked into the event, what did that look like? Can we have our logo? Can we have our brand?
Mm-hmm.
Can we put sponsors on the front page of the reception?
Mm-hmm.
And then how many times does a attendee need to click in and out of a session, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we really found the holy grail of virtual event platforms because what we, can I say it?
Yeah, you have to. I was going to say, if you're saying the holy grail of virtual event platforms and you don't give us the name, I'm just going to get emails after this episode goes live being like, what was the name? What was the name? Why didn't you ask her? Yes, please.
Okay, so the virtual event platform we use is Hopin, Hopin.
I've heard great things about them, yeah.
Yeah, and we've been so happy with them. They're a UK-based company that really launched right before the pandemic. So um, they've really designed a platform with the conference experience in mind.
Mm.
So how it works is an attendee logs in, they see a reception page, and then the menu is broken down by a general stage. So we correlated that to a general session on an event.
Gotcha.
And then you can have sessions, and we correlated that to breakout sessions.
Yeah.
So an attendee could hop in or out of the main stage or the session rooms. Mm-hmm. And that's really what a conference is about, right? You get to pick and choose what you want to go to.
Yeah.
Plus, they offered a virtual exhibit hall as well, where exhibitors can be on screen, just like you right now with me, pitching or interacting with our members.
What are some of the ways that you're tackling that strategic priority of growing your audience, first of all, and then, growing your membership base?
Right. Thank you for that. So in a pandemic world, we are growing our membership base by really marketing the digital event education opportunities. We find the most value in being able to reach people that are in our database that haven't really been engaged in CPHA for a long time, to bring them back into the fold. Plus, a virtual event is a lot cheaper to host than an in-person event. Mm-hmm. So we've really tried to mirror and to grow with the tools that we have. And the reach that we have. Well, there are so many pharmacists in California and nationwide that California, especially CPHA, has been pushing legislation that set trends throughout the rest of the nation. Gotcha. So we really utilize our position and market it in ways that, especially in a pandemic world, where access is important. And that creates additional brand awareness for CPHA.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes that membership numbers don't necessarily reflect all the work that you do, but I strongly believe that brand awareness is as important as membership, because at the end of the day, if someone is saying CPHA, you've actually expanded your reach. You've actually put yourself ahead of your competing associations. You are the go-to, and eventually you will get that member. But with that solid marketing and not being, I guess, jaded by status in membership numbers, can actually still have an impact.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a true believer in that idea also of growing the size and the depth of engagement that you have with your audience as a leading indicator for the kind of more bottom of funnel or business or revenue generating activities that you're trying to drive from a marketing standpoint. It's a necessary component of things because, like you're saying, not everybody is always in market to buy whatever it is you're selling. So if you're selling a car, the example is really clear, but if somebody just purchased the car, they're probably not in market to buy again for 5 or 6 years or 7 or 8 years, right? Depending on the whatever typical life cycle of a car in your area. But that doesn't mean that somebody who just purchased a car or who purchased a car 4 years ago and who's going to buy in 3 years isn't important for you to market to. The approach is different. It's not buy now, whereas the people who are 7 years from their last point of purchase, the message may be buy now because they're in market. But at any point in time, the actual majority of your audience is not in market. They're not ready to buy. And so if you're only focused on the ready to buy segment, you end up drying out the well over and over and over. And so it's much better to be in the position such that when somebody is in market, something happens and they're ready to, invest in some education, some continuing education, or they're ready for networking or to find their next job or whatever the variety of reasons people might think about one of the programs that you offer as an association for top of mind. If they already know about you and they've had your association recommended to them by other peers several times to that point, they're going to come to you. They're going to show up on your website through direct traffic or through search traffic by searching your brand, coming to the site and converting right away. And to you in Google Analytics or anybody, it's gonna look like, wow, somebody just clicked. Their life was direct traffic, hit the site, converted in 3 minutes, and wow, we have a new member, or we have a new event registration, or what have you. But the actual story is all of the brand work and the awareness building work that you've done, in the months and years prior. So exactly. I love that point.
Thank you. I mean, and it goes to the conversation that I'm sure you've had with others, that your voice needs to be consistent in all of your advertising. You can't just speak to one segment, you have to speak to it all. So a lot of our advertisements are the voice of the profession. We don't try to single out anybody or any one practice. We're really speaking to how we help unify and advance. And the more people see our logo, the better it is, because they know that we'll always be there.
We've worked together from Sheila and Feathr, and you've helped us with some content production. Is that something that you do on the side? I know. And so I've seen your kind of high quality focus on copywriting and on messaging. But something I'd like to dig in on in terms of your work with CPHA is the development of that central kind of association voice. It's not something that I hear a lot about, to be honest. I think, most marketers are focused on setting up the right marketing channels and using them the proper way and optimizing channels, and maybe working on the underlying programs that are being promoted, whether that's education or membership or events or any kind of mix. And obviously that's all absolutely necessary, but there's this layer of the brand definition and the personality of the association and how that's communicated in emails and in ads and on the website, et cetera, and how that's maintained and developed. And it doesn't get a lot of attention in my experience. It's not talked about so much, but you made that very much a strategic priority for CPHA, and so I'd love to talk about that, why you prioritize that, how you went about kind of discovering that brand voice and defining that message, and then some of the ways that it's been implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of those people that don't really differ in your personal life or professional life. What I value the most in my everyday, no matter what I'm doing, is that personal connection. No matter who I talk to or what I'm sharing, I'm always very relatable and very engaging and very cognizant of not just what I'm saying or how I'm saying it as well.
Right.
So when I come to work every day, those values are so important to me. When I'm pitching a membership, potential membership, or selling an event, I really try to put myself in the shoes of who will be receiving that information. Mm-hmm. And in my 6-month, training of CPHA, when I first came on board, because that's usually how long it takes to really understand an organization.
Yeah.
I noticed that our members care so much about pharmacy. They care so much about this association that has been around for so long, and they are proud, right? So everything that we draft here at CPHA really speaks to what values our members have, with a little bit of Sheila thrown in there. Because for me...
Member values plus Sheila. That's the formula for the association brand. I love it.
That is exactly true.
I love it.
And I say that because, again, I think about people so much more than I think about myself, that I want them to always have the best experience, always have the best day, and never feel like anything I'm trying to sell or market or talk to them about is a chore. So that voice that I implement, I have implemented and have implemented through my team is such of caring, of kindness, things that a pharmacist do on a daily basis. They're literally focused on the health of Californians. I mean, what's more important? I could do a little bit of effort here and have some fun, throw in some flair, and find that angle that really speaks to our members or potential members on a personal level. So with that in mind, that's the foundation of our communications here at CPHA is really garnering the role of the pharmacist, their impact in California and beyond. And if I can channel that a little bit in terms of the copy we write or the branding that we design, then I've done my job at the end of the day. They actually have a term on my team. They call it, can you Sheila-lize this? I think that's what they say. I can't even say it right. But, I know what they're talking about when they ask me to write something. Sheila size, that's it.
Sheila size it. We have to make you a graphic for you to print out for the team. And you can post it or send it to them digitally. And it'll just be like, Sheila size this.
I know for me, it's really important as a creative individual to have that time for myself to get ideas from other places. When I was driving to work every day pre-pandemic, I would look at the slogans on back of trucks because, I mean, where else can people advertise, right? I look at billboards. Whatever I can do to continue to have that creative channel flow is really important. For me.
Yeah, and just to go back to member values plus Sheila, I love that, honestly. I really do, because I think both components are necessary. You have to have a sense of empathy for your audience in terms of what they care about and what their values are. And obviously there's going to be variety, but at the same time, there are going to be unifying components of that. And you have to discover that. I think as a marketer, that's sometimes underemphasized, is that sense of empathy with your customers. I mean, personally, I know one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is because I get to talk to association marketers. I get to talk to customers. I get to talk to people who are in our audience. And I learned so much, like I've learned so much in this last hour about our audience through you. And that sense of understanding and empathy, to me, it creates both like speed from a marketing standpoint, because you can trust your intuition, because you have a good read on your audience, and it creates both like speed and momentum and better quality work, because you're writing from a better place, or you're producing a marketing campaign or whatever it is from a place of empathy, and you're actually able to stand in the shoes of your customers and stand in the shoes of your audience. I think that's kind of common knowledge, and that's said a lot from a marketing standpoint. But doing it is not just as easy as thinking about that phrase, right? You have to have had FaceTime like this with your members, with your audience, and you have to do it regularly such that your sense of empathy with that audience is kind of maintained and up to date. And then the content ideas flow, the way to promote something flows, your intuition about what's going to work and what doesn't work will improve that way. And at the same time, your own personality is necessary. It's unavoidable, so might as well embrace it. You can't purely be like no individual personality, only member values or only audience values, what the research says, right? There has to be that level of individual personality. It's there anyways, might as well embrace it. And that also creates a uniqueness to your voice and to your marketing. So even though it was kind of said as a joke, member values plus Sheila, I think that is like the formula, or it's at least one to consider, which is like member audience values, and like discovering that through research and time with them, and internal subject matter experts that you may have in your organization that have been in the space for a long time. What are the values that are really stand out, important values? And then plus your own personal values, and then combining those. That's a really good starting point for a really compelling brand message.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone that works in an association is a brand of the association, right? Everyone brings something different to the table. So being able to have those conversations with colleagues, I mean, I get inspired by my colleagues every day. They say something that just resonates with me, and then I can turn it into something that has the member benefits plus Sheila, like you said.
If you could wave a magic wand today and solve one problem in your professional life, that is not just unlimited money or more budget, so that's the one exception, but what would it be? What would it be?
This is a big one, a big ask, but I think a lot of associations deal with that question: how does your association benefit me? As someone that's typically very selfless in their day to day, that question is so hard for me to hear, because at the end of the day, I just want all of our pharmacy members or any member organizations that I work for, the members to feel pride in the association that their forefathers created for them, right? So I would love to eliminate that question of what do I get out of this, and just, oh yes, this is my obligation, to support the trade association, to support the profession, whatever the mission of an association is. I would love to just see that I'm going to believe in you no matter what approach, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that really would require a magic wand, wouldn't it?
You asked the question.
I did. I did. Well, but I can see, especially for associations that are very much focused on advocacy and kind of representing an industry like yours is, that's so important for the members of that association to recognize that contribution of the association. And obviously you try to build out the individual member benefit side of things from an education or events or a networking content standpoint, maybe special resources, insurance, all these things that you've mentioned, and at the same time to recognize that their contribution is to support the industry outside of their own individual member benefits. Yeah, that's sometimes, I guess, an underappreciated component of being a member of an association is that side.
Yeah, I completely agree, because then on the implementation side for my day-to-day job, I mean, selling is hard work, right? Like there are only so many ways you can say join, right?
Yeah.
So if the magic wand were to materialize, that would make my job a little bit easier sometimes.
Well, I'll keep you in the loop. If it shows up, maybe if I talk about it enough, it'll just like show up at my door one time. And if it does, I will definitely let you know.
You have the number.
I do. Cool. And last one, where do you see associations and kind of association marketing in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
I think the pandemic has been really great for associations, because the use of digital and virtual tools have shown a bright light on the efficiency avenues that are available for associations. I mean, most associations don't have 13 staff members. Most have 3 to 5. But members often think that there's 20, because association staff are so hardworking, and they do the jobs of 10 people on a staff of 5, right? So I would encourage associations to continue to look for manners to be more efficient. I think digital education, as you just mentioned, Abe, is a great start because you can reach a lot more. Even digital advertising, because nobody can make membership calls 8 hours a day. What are those tools? Go find them and make membership work, not membership, but make technology work for the association.
Yeah.
I think that's what I see happening in the next 3 to 5 years for associations nationwide, or even internationally for that matter.
Great. Awesome. Well, Sheila, thank you so much for the time today. I've loved this conversation. I'd love to have a part 2 at some point in the future, bring you back on. But thank you so much for the time. It's been really insightful for me, and I think it'll be very, very helpful for our audience of association marketers as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to talk about communications and marketing with the California Pharmacists Association, and just dreaming with you as well. And dreaming about the future of association. So thank you.
Amazing. You're very welcome.
Thank you for watching the Association Marketing Show. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more content like this, and click the little notification bell to make sure you stay in the loop when the next episode drops. I'll see you on the next one.